Welcome to our online discipleship. I'm Pastor Jess Holmes. This last week, we kicked off a brand new series called Questions Jesus Asked. Some of the greatest teachers and even mentors I've ever had knew and understood the power of asking questions. Share with your group who was your favorite teacher and why. If you're doing this by yourself, maybe write their name down in a journal and just thank God for them. Press pause, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Jesus was referred to as rabbi or teacher by his disciples. The greatest teacher showed us the power of asking questions. We started off by studying the questions that Jesus asked, and we started in Matthew chapter 16. Let's turn there and read it in its entirety. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Jesus started by asking two questions. Who do people say the Son of Man is? And the second was, who do you say that I am? So let's start with the first question. Who do people say that Jesus is? Well, I think Peter answered this the same way that I think people of today would answer it, by listing him with the names of great people. For instance, he said John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, or maybe one of the other prophets. In other words, Peter was putting him in the list of the Mount Rushmore of the greatest people. In fact, if you were to ask your friends, who is the Mount Rushmore of the greatest people to ever live? And even if they're not Christians, I'll bet that Jesus is mentioned amongst Gandhi and Mother Teresa. So they basically were doing the exact same thing. They were mentioning him amongst the greats, but they weren't saying that he was the greatest. They list these greats, and Jesus is like, yeah. And he looks at Peter and he says, "But what about you? Who do you say that I am?" And his answer, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." The word Christ, the Hebrew word meaning the same thing, is Mashiach, or as we know it, Messiah. So the Christ can be interpreted anointed one or the chosen. So when put together, Jesus Christ could be interpreted Jesus, the anointed Son of God, the Messiah. This was a profound statement. In fact, we call it Peter's good confession. Because of this, Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Too many times we take this passage and we just get focused on Peter, the rock. But what's interesting is when you really understand the setting, well, now the story really comes to life. We have to look back at the beginning. It says that it took place in Caesarea Philippi. This was a Greco-Roman city near the ancient city of Dan. It was by Mount Hermon and by the Jordan River. So if you follow the Benaiah streams, you will come to this cliff area. When you get there, you'll see 100-foot high cliffs that just seem to come out of nowhere, and they're about 500 feet wide. Inside of this, you'll see a rocky surface with a cave in it. In fact, they say the cave is so deep in the olden days, they couldn't understand how deep it would go. It was here that Herod the Great built the temple of Augustus in 19 BC, and it was built to honor his Caesar. The temple sat in front of the cave, and it was believed to be the gateway to the underworld. The Greeks even believed that the god Pan lived there. They built 3 temples there, and you can see the ruins of those to this day. The Greeks called this place Panias. The cave became an attraction for Hellenistic pagan worship. Animal sacrifices, many times goats, were thrown into the bottom, and 3 temples were built there to honor Pan, Zeus, and Nemesis. Pan was the god of goats, and at his temple, horrible sexual acts with animals would take place. This city was so wicked and corrupt that rabbis would actually tell Jews to not even go there. Most historians and scholars believe this could be the place of the transfiguration found in Matthew 17, 1-8. Now this would make sense because it was there they said, let's build 3 temples. So it would basically overthrow the 3 temples that the Greeks had built there. So do you now see the significance of this place? I mean, can you imagine Jesus asking you, who do you say that I am? And in the backdrop, you're standing in a place where most Jews are forbidden to even go. At a place where most people believe it is literally the gate to hell. And all around you are temples made to man-made gods. And all the while you're being asked that, you are staring at the cornerstone. You're staring at the rock of our salvation. Jesus was standing where it was believed to be the gates of hell, the door to the underworld, Satan's front door. And he was declaring that a battle was on for the souls of man, that the gauntlet had been thrown down. And because of your good confession, he tells you, you now have the keys to bind up hell, to close the door, that the man standing in front of you is the Son of God, the Messiah, the Savior, who will defeat death, who will triumph over Satan. What a powerful picture and setting it must have been. I'd like to read what Mark Twain wrote about in 1867 when he visited this very place. And he described it like this: scattered everywhere, in the paths and in the woods, are Corinthian capitals, broken pillars, and little fragments of sculpture. And up yonder, in the precipice, where the fountain gushes out, are well-worn Greek inscriptions over niches in the rock where in ancient times the Greeks and after them the Romans worshipped the god Pan. The ancients believed that water symbolized the abyss and death. So the spring that flowed out of the gate of Hades made Jesus' promise about his church's supremacy all the more poignant. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. How perfect that the one of the most sinful places in Israel was where he revealed himself to be the true God of Israel. So I think the same question is for me and you. Who is Jesus to you? Is he just another great historical figure? Or is he the Son of God, your Savior? Remember, there is a battle for your soul. The truth is Jesus Christ. And only you can answer that question honestly in your heart. I'd like for you to finish by going over the questions found in the comment section. And I want you to really dig deep into who is Jesus. Join us next week as we dig into another question Jesus asked. We'll see you then.